Hello, everybody. My day 2 of my Math Centers Made Easy is about to go down right now in just a minute. I'm going to let the room fill up just a little bit. Hey guys, hello to all of you. I kind of like to start my Periscopes with a little poll. So let me turn this down for a second. In the comments, here's what I want to know today. I want to know when you start school. Oh, very first scope. Awesome. Welcome. So tell me when you start school, because I know it's coming up. Some of you may have already started. So what day do you start school? In the comments, just before we get started. A lot of people in August 3rd. Oh my goodness, that's right around the corner. So a lot of August. I saw a couple Septembers. Awesome. Coming up, kids start August 24th, August 3rd. And then if this is your first scope with me, I want you to put firsty in the comments so that I know that this is your first scope that you've had with me. And then we are going to go ahead and get started. So I've taken a poll. I want to know when you start school. And if it's your first scope, go ahead and put firsty in the comment. Welcome to all of you. Oh, good. A lot of first-time people. Perfect. All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday to you all. I'm really excited to be here and share day number 2 of Math Centers Made Easy. I'm going to do a little recap if you missed the first post, but if you think that your friends will benefit from this, if you know that you have teacher friends or people that are still struggling with centers and how to make it work for their classroom, I would love for you to share this so you can tap the Perry Buddy in the bottom right corner of the screen, or you can swipe your screen up, left, right. There's all different directions for different types of phones, so I'm sure you know that by now, and share this out with all of your friends. Also, if the broadcast gets so, y'all are gonna laugh. If you watched my scope the other day about me cutting out social media, I have been doing a good job about it, but you're gonna laugh because I've started Twitter. Doggone, y'all, I've started Twitter. Don't judge me. But it is because it's perfect for Periscope, because if it gets too full, you can actually tweet me, and my Twitter handle is just @HopeKingTeach. So it's a little bit different than other things that I have. So it's @HopeKingTeach. I tried everything. I tried Elementary Shenanigans. I tried Hope King. I tried Hope King with different numbers. Apparently, a lot of people have the name Hope King. So I had to do Hope King Teach on Twitter. So if you have questions and the broadcast is too full, you can just head on over to Twitter and put them there, and I will check those and get back with you all. Or if I see a lot of questions, I'll just do a blog post. So I appreciate you all being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just to kind of recap, I'm talking today about Math Centers. My name is Hope King, and just in case you want any of this information, it is on the first post that I did, or the first Periscope that I did, is on my blog. My blog is www.elementaryShenanigans.com. So you can go there and check it all out. And for those of you that this is your first scope, just to show you that I am actually a real teacher, I'm not just some crazy blonde girl on your screen. I do teach at a school called the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta, Georgia. We're also a teacher training facility, so you can actually come visit my school and see me. I would love to meet you all. So you can actually check that out on www.ronclarkacademy.com. So just a little recap. I mentioned in the first scope that centers make me want to go crazy. I could never find a way to make centers work in my classroom. Here is why. Because I found that one set of centers did not reach all of my learners. It was very limiting, because I even mentioned the first time that even though I taught first grade or second grade, I was not, it's funny to me that we call it that, because I was teaching every grade level. In second grade, I was teaching kindergarten, and first grade, and second grade, and third grade, and fourth grade, and fifth grade. So for me, I could not wrap my brain around having one set of second grade centers that reached all of my learners. And I know that every single minute in our classroom is so precious. So I want to give you a new little strategy. If you have your brain wrapped around centers, perfect. That is awesome. Way to go. I could not. So if you're still struggling with centers, maybe this is for you, or if you just kind of want to switch things up in your classroom every now and then, you might pick up a few tips. I'm going to quickly go over how these centers work and how one set of centers, because I still received a lot of questions. Are these appropriate for third grade? Are they appropriate for fifth grade? Are they appropriate for sixth grade? They are appropriate for every single grade level, because the centers are based off of your students' individual performance and how they are doing in your classroom academically, especially in math. So I'm going to quickly recap how these work, just like for 2 minutes. minutes, and then I'm going to get into the organization side. So that's what a lot of people wanted to know about. How did you organize these? How did you keep your students accountable? And then tomorrow I will be back to talk about assessment and how I use these to assess my learners. It wasn't just an activity that I threw away, how I made that work, because here's the thing, as teachers, we can get caught up in assessment and we can spend our entire lives at night assessing our students and checking papers and grading. So I'm going to talk about a way that, yes, I did assess them, but also I didn't overdo it because it's just not necessary with these centers. So I'm going to flip you around and get going. Thank you all for joining me. I'm excited to have you all here. So here we go with Math Centers Made Easy. I'm going to flip you around quickly. All right, so just to recap a little bit about how these centers work, here is the setup. You may have seen this on my blog if you checked it out the other day, but basically I use the back of a bookshelf and file folders to make my centers work. So that way I was not using a tremendous amount of space in my room. Again, I'll say one more time for people just joining us, you can check all of this out. I'm gonna scoot through this quickly so I can get to the organization side, but you can check this all out at www.elementaryShenanigans.com. There's even a video. I promise it's all there for you. So I'm not leaving you hanging. I'm just going to get to the second part of this post. For the people that's already heard this, they don't want to hear it again. I promise you that. So that's kind of the setup. And then I'm just going to scoot through a couple of these and talk about how it works. All right. So for this type of math center, you need two things. You need a response sheet, which is right here, and your students need playing cards right here. The response sheets are completely blank. I have them for pretty much every math skill or every basic math skill that needs a lot of drill and practice. So the response sheets are blank for a reason, because your students are actually creating every single number new each time they do a center. So that means that they could actually do this center, I don't know, 1,000 times and would have different numbers each time. Now, of course, they probably come around to the same numbers every now and again, but they're creating their own numbers. They do that by using playing cards. Here is why it works for first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade. I have used it, or I have had people use it in every single grade level. So say the students are working on place value and they're kind of a beginner level and they're working with 2-digit numbers. They will flip over 2 cards, bam, 2-digit number, and they will go here on their response sheet and they will do all of the activities. However, we know that when we teach a grade level, we have students that might be on 2-digit numbers, 3-digit numbers, 4. They might be ready for the millions place, the billions place. I don't know. But the thing about it is we can't allow our students to get bored, so we've got to keep moving them on. So if you have a student that has surpassed 2-digit numbers, then they do the same exact activity with 3-digit numbers. Same exact activity, but now they're working with the 1s, 10s, and 100s. So you can keep going. Kids can work with 4-digit numbers, 5-digit numbers, and so on, but every single student is working on the same response sheet because they are filling in those numbers and completing the activities. So for place value, they might be telling me the value of each digit. They might be writing it in expanded form, the number form. So different forms of that number. So I have these centers and they work similarly for every single skill. So here's addition. Again, a student at level 1 adding 2-digit numbers. They would flip over 2 cards right here and then another 2 cards right here, and they would go right over here and they would add them together in the blanks. I also talked about on my other scope, which again is on my blog, how I handled this if the numbers in a certain column were greater than 10. So make sure you check out that first scope because I'm not going to get into all the logistics of that right now, but it's all on my blog for you. So that is basically, and then you can see level 2, they're adding 3-digit numbers. You could even do a 3-digit number, 3-digit number, 3-digit number, and they could add multiple numbers. So the differentiation in these centers, that's what's key. That's how I found to make it work best for my students and to meet their needs. Now, let's get to the organization part. So I've quickly caught you all up on how these centers work and kind of the purpose of them. So now let me give you, if you choose to use these or if you choose to do something similar, maybe you'll take this idea and you'll do something, similar to the idea but a little different. I'm going to give you some organization tips and tricks and techniques that I used that made it very efficient in my classroom and made it easy for me as a teacher because I didn't want this to be something that I was going to pull my hair out with later. So again, that's kind of the setup on the back of a bookshelf. You can tell here's my January version, and then here is another version. And yes, the centers are the same in each set, The reason I changed it up every single month is because it had different cards, it had a different look. Kids always look forward to, oh, what's the theme going to be this month? What's the theme going to be next month? So it just kind of switched it up a little bit because the centers do remain the same. Again, I addressed why the students did not get bored and how all of that worked and how I kept them engaged and excited about this in my first scope, so make sure you check that out. All right, the very first thing, the cards. So I would print multiple cards. You can do this many different ways. I'll tell you two. One way is at the beginning of each month when I would change my center theme, I would print out 3 sets of cards for each student, allow them to cut them out, and they would put them in a Ziploc bag or a container like this. That way they had their own cards. I didn't have to worry about where are cards? Oh, we're out of cards. Oh, there's not enough cards over here. So that's one way you can do it. Or you can print out multiple sets. Maybe you have 20 kids in your room. You go ahead and print out those 20 sets. You number the boxes. They can find their number. They could keep them in their cubby. Or maybe you have 25 kids, but you know that a certain amount of kids are going to be with you in small group. So maybe you only want to make 15 sets of cards. However you want to do to make it work, the easiest thing to do though is to make sure that the kids know where the cards are located, where they can find them, where they can find extra. So that way, when you're working with those small groups, they're not interrupting you and saying, Mrs. King, I can't find my cards. I don't know where they're at. I can't do my centers. So make sure that those are readily available to your students. Also, I do want to point out, I mentioned this in the first scope as well. Make sure you have manipulatives available for those students. I always had base 10 blocks out, so that way if they were adding and they got confused about what, how to add or how to put numbers together, they could make those numbers with base 10 blocks and have a visual representation. So I always had base 10 blocks readily available for the students, so that way they could actually see these things happening and they weren't just numbers on a page. They knew how it worked, why it worked, how they could change it up to make it work different ways. So that's also critical here. So my cards were kept in similar cases like this, and again, I gave you 3 different ways that you could actually organize those for your students. However works for you is what is actually best. Just make sure your students can get a hold of those. And again, I found those at Dollar Tree, super inexpensive. I'm all about cheap. All right, next, storage. Here is how I made this work. Okay, so if you remember the setup picture from earlier, my file folders were on the back of a bookcase. So what I did is I would print out the label for the centers. I would put it on top of a file folder. Then I would laminate those and put a little slit at the top so I could slip the papers inside. And then what I did is I had already attached Velcro to the back of the bookcase. And so that way, when I finished a month, these were actually just Velcroed on the bookcase. So when I finished a month, all I would have to do is just tear those puppies off and store them away for the following year. So that was very, very simple. I didn't hot glue them, and so that I would have to tear it down and redo it every month. It was just super simple. They were Velcroed, and that way, when I was done with that month and ready for a new theme, I would just pull those puppies right off, and then I would put them in a box like this. So each month, I would have all of my file folders laminated. Right, I see you saying easy, simple. I am all about easy, simple. Ain't nobody got time for hard or time consuming. No teacher at all has time for that. So I would tear them off, put them right here in the storage case. I would gather the cards if I had laminated them. Sometimes I would actually, if I had time, it was rare, but I would laminate the cards, and so that way I would have them year after year after year. So I would just gather the cards, I would put rubber bands around them, and here you have, and then I would also have a copy, a master copy of each one of the center response sheets, so that way it was all in here. So the following year, when it was time for January, boom, pull out the January bucket, make the copies, put it on the Velcro on my bookcase, get my cards out, organize them for the kids, ready to go. I am talking about each month. Once I had this done, it was maybe 30 minutes, maybe. And you have centers already organized, already prepared, already done to meet the needs of every single learner within 30 minutes. Because I mentioned in the first scope that one thing that I struggled with is I was thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Make centers for a 2nd grade level, a 3rd grade level, a 4th grade level, a 5th grade level. I would have been making centers for the rest of my life. I just did not have time to do that. So this was the easiest way. Again, the storage was simple. The organization was simple. I love simple. So that was the storage. Put them right here in these cases, and they were ready to go for the next year. All right, now getting to the part where I'm going to back up a little bit so that you can see this. And the storage containers, you can find them anywhere. Target, Walmart, you can find them online at Amazon. I just made sure that they were skinny because I didn't want them to be bulky and that they would fit the file folder. So it was pretty simple. I think that I found when I used them in my classroom, I found them at Target, I think. Now, the next part, student organization. So I've talked about how to make your life easy as a teacher with those centers. Now I'm going to talk about how to make your life easy with keeping track of your students. I'm not going to get into the assessment though, okay? Don't freak out. That's coming tomorrow. I'm just trying to break this down piece by piece for you all so you don't have to listen. You don't have to sit here and listen to an hour-long scope. I will also take questions at the end, but if you can't wait till the end or you're afraid you're going to forget, you can also tweet me questions at @HopeKingTeach. Okay, so now let's talk about student folders. My students each have their very own folder. Here's how I organize, and here's how I assigned the centers each week. Okay, so you could, this is just a simple pocket folder. On one side I had must do, and on the other side I had can do. So the students were assigned a certain number of centers each week. But here's the really cool part. Once they would finish what they had to do for me, then they could do as many activities as they wanted. The kids actually got really competitive and they would start seeing how many they could finish each day or how many they could finish in a week and if they could beat their number, if they were becoming faster at solving math problems and equations and different things. So it was really motivating for them. Now let me talk about why I had two sides. This, the must-do side, was the side that I focused on. That's the side I graded, and I'll talk more about that tomorrow and how I did that and how I broke that apart so that way it wasn't killing me as a teacher trying to grade all of these centers, okay? Because again, I didn't just want to toss it in the trash. I wanted it to be meaningful work, so in order for it to be meaningful, I had to see how my students were doing and if they were ready to advance levels. However, the can-do side, I did not worry about this side. I looked at this side as a way for my kids to get that drill and practice, that repetition. But honestly, some of my kids would have done 30 centers by the end of the week, and I could not grade 30 centers. It wasn't necessary because here's the thing with math. If you are checking an addition sheet and they have 6 problems right, why do you need to check all 20? They obviously have the methods and the strategies down to be able to solve addition. So I didn't worry about this side. I just worried about this side. I'll talk more about that tomorrow, why I did that and how I made it work. So that's how my students kept it organized, and they would just keep these folders in their cubbies. And I'm seeing that y'all have some great ideas down there. I don't want to stop and look at those now, but believe me when I say I go back and read every single one of these comments, and y'all give me the best ideas of how I can even perfect the things that I'm showing you. So I really appreciate the comments and you talking with one another down there because it helps me out more than you know. So keep the comments coming, share ideas. I love that. Collaboration at its finest. All right, so that's how I kept my students' work organized. Now, I want to talk about how I kept their assignments organized. Kirk, what in the world are you doing in here? Kirk is our development officer. I don't even know what he's doing in here. He must just be hanging out. You missed me already? All right, so how did I keep my students' assignments organized? When I would grade, and I will talk about how I graded these again tomorrow, but when I would grade, I might not have graded every student at the same time. I'm going to talk about a little schedule that I did that worked best for me. I would put a new sheet that looked like this, and I'll give you a close-up right here. But notice that it would go in the must-do side because this was choice. When we give students choice, they're more motivated to do more and to do better quality work because they're saying, oh, I really love working on place value, or oh, I really love working on addition or subtraction. I'm going to work on those. So it was the best of both worlds. My world, their world right here. Okay, so let's talk about how I kept up with those assignments. I would give them the little slips of paper that would look something like this, and I would put their name at the top, so-and-so, so we'll say Kirk just because I saw him come in the room, Kirk's Math Challenge. Then I had all of the centers that were available. You might not have every single center out, but I had all of the centers that were available listed on this sheet. Then there's multiple ways to do this. So I'm going to give you all of those ways. And again, you determine what works best for you. If you don't like to keep up with a lot, I'm going to give you another option here in just a second. So you could assign students a certain number that they had to complete each week. Like maybe you want them to do 1 addition. Maybe they were struggling with subtraction the week before, so you wanted them to do 2 subtractions, 1 rounded up, 1 order up, 1 division. So you could actually make individual assignments for your students this way. I'm going to be real honest with you when I say I could not keep up with this method right here. I couldn't keep up with whether I wanted Charlie to do this many in division or whether I wanted Katie to do 6 in division or 2 in subtraction. I tried that for a while, and y'all, it just didn't work for me. I'm sure some of you organized people would have this down to a science. It didn't work for me. So here's kind of what I did. I would assign each student in my class kind of the same number of each skill for that week, because they're all needing to work on the same things, but some of them are working with 2-digit numbers, some of them are working with 3-digit numbers, some of them are working with 6-digit numbers. So I would make a sheet for each student, and I would say, you know, this week I want for everybody to complete 2 addition, 1 subtraction, 1 rounded up, 1 multiplication, and then once they finish those, they would get their choice. Again, some students might not have been ready for division, and they knew that, so they knew that a choice could not be division. If I had not okayed them to do a center or taught them how to do that center or that activity, they could not do it. But students are smart, y'all. They know what they can and cannot do, so let them keep up with that. Don't like stress yourself out trying to keep up with now who has this and who does what. Give kids that you know, accountability piece. Let them keep track of what they should and should not do. So again, you can have them complete 1 of each. Maybe you want them to do 1 of each before they move on. Or sometimes I would even do it some weeks where I would say 5 of your choice and say you choose what centers you want to do. You could do something different each week with how you assign those centers. So that way it's kind of mixing it up. It's keeping it fresh with the kids. It's not getting something that's monotonous and, you know, just kind of like a robot. You don't want it to get boring that way. So you can always switch it up. But this was just an easy kind of assignment sheet that I would put in their folder, and I'll go back to the picture just like that. So that way they would know exactly what they needed to complete each week. Pretty simple, right? And then I wanted to do one to show you that, you know, for a 1st grade classroom or a 2nd grade classroom, you might not have all of those centers on that bookshelf. You might not have all of them, you know, in your little file compartment or folder box, but you can just create your own sheet so that way it shows whatever centers are available and what you want to assign those students. Okay? All right, pretty easy. So that is basically how I keep track, and I'm going to kind of go back to the very first part with the organization part. If you have questions, put them in the comments right now, and I'll go ahead and try to answer a couple of them. If you don't have questions right now, but you have questions later, you can tweet me at HopeKingTeach. So it's a little bit different than my other names. At HopeKingTeach, and you can ask me questions or share ideas. I want to see all of your ideas. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put, doesn't look like you have that many questions, so I will go ahead and wrap this up. If the back of the shelf isn't available, what do you, oh, okay. So you could get a crate, and you could get the hanging folders. Oh my goodness, now they're all coming in. I'm trying to keep up with them. You could hang them on that crate, kind of like a filing system, so that could work as well. How long do your students spend in math centers? So typically what I would do in 2nd and 3rd grade is I would teach about a 15-minute mini lesson type of thing, which was my whole group instruction. But then I really wanted to get, especially in those younger grades, it's just really challenging to meet the needs of such diverse learners. So really in every grade. But I would do a 15-minute mini lesson, and then we would split up into, I typically did a high, middle, and low group. So the students would have 3 different rotations. They would do math centers, then they would do something technology related, and then we also, in our district, we had something that they had purchased for us called pallets, and they were these really awesome differentiated games, and so they actually had different levels, so it was another way that I could differentiate, but the kids were playing games, so they really loved those as well. So I just kind of mixed it up a little bit, and you know, one rotation they were obviously with me, so that allowed me to teach. I would teach 3 different math lessons, you know, and it might have been on the same skill, but again, it was at 3 different levels for them. So that was kind of the simplest way that I found to do it that was most effective for my students. So I bought these last year. They were great. Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad that you enjoyed them. Let me know if you have any ideas or things that you tried differently with them that I could share with others. I love getting people's ideas. When do you start the centers? All right, so, you know, it's going to look a little bit different depending on the grade that you teach. When I taught 1st grade, I would kind of ease them into things just because, you know, they haven't learned a tremendous amount yet. So it might be that I waited until I taught addition and then I taught subtraction and kind of eased them in that way. In second grade, because I was actually fortunate enough to be able to loop with my kids from first to second to third. So in second grade, buddy, I hit the ground running. We got in there that first week. I taught them a new center every day. As soon as I had gone through these centers, we were up and at it. We were doing centers, and I was ready to start teaching math. That's another thing I love about them. I didn't have to give a new set of directions, a new set of here's how these centers work, here's how you do this center every week. I feel like when I was trying to do centers a different way, every week I was spending 20 minutes of my instructional time going, here's how you do these centers, and here's where they're at, and here's where you find the pieces. I just couldn't do that. This was consistent. It was organized. They knew what was expected. So bam, 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 getting the biggest bang for my buck in math. It was really simplified, not only for me, it was simple for me, but also for my kids. So we were making the most out of our time. These are in my TPT store. Yes. Okay. So if you go to my blog, and I know I mentioned this several times, sorry, I just know that people come in and I don't want you to think that I'm skipping past things. But if you go to my blog, www.elementaryShenanigans.com, if you go down a second post to the second post that I've done recently, you will see this, and you'll see the pictures that I showed you and how I organize these. And I'm going to go back and actually add some to that post or do a follow-up post and put this video on there as well. The kids didn't get bored doing the same activities. Okay. So no, they did not. Here's why. I shared this on the first scope, so just in case you missed it. So here's what's happening though. Even though it's the same skill, think about it. Your centers that you do where you have to make new ones every single week, for me, those were still the same skill. It just had different clip art and different numbers, right? So it kind of changed it up. With these, the students are making different numbers every single time. And not only are they doing that, here's why they didn't get bored. I feel like this is the real reason. This is the real answer why they didn't get bored. Not only that, they were able to go somewhere with these centers. It wasn't limiting. They didn't just have this set of second grade centers. They knew, oh buddy, as soon as I master 2-digit numbers, I'm on to 3-digit numbers. And as soon as I grasp that and I've got that mastered, I can move on to 4-digit numbers. Oh my word, I might be doing 4th grade math by the end of my 2nd grade year. And you know what? I was totally okay with that. I don't like standards because I feel like they limit our kids. I didn't teach 2nd grade, I taught kids. And I was going to teach those kids wherever they were at. So if it was at a 2nd grade level, boom, I got it. But if you're ready for a 4th and a 5th and a 6th grade level, I'm moving you there too. Why am I going to stop you? That's why kids get bored. That's why my kids got bored with my other centers, is because it was 2nd grade. Some of them were like, okay, big yawn, I've got this down. That's why they got bored with centers, and they would start talking. When I started doing centers like this, they were boom, they were engaged, they were focused, they were seeing how many they could get done, they were excited about how many they could have in their folder, advancing in levels. So it was very motivating for those reasons, because it didn't limit them. It allowed them to keep striving for, bigger and better and greater numbers, and they really felt a sense of pride, like, oh my goodness, I'm above my grade level. I'm really learning things. I'm improving. I'm getting better, versus keeping them here in 2nd grade. We cannot keep our kids in 2nd grade or in 3rd grade or in 4th grade, y'all. We've got to teach them when they're ready to be taught. We've got to teach to those top scholars and keep moving our class forward. So we cannot allow things like centers and standards and all of that, to limit us with our kids. Preach it. Oh, let me get going. I can get on my soapbox, I'm telling you right now. So I'll try not to do that. Last question. How did you quick check to make sure they can move to the next level? Okay, so perfect. I want you to tune in tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this right here and tell you that tomorrow I am going to high expectations. Bam. That's what I'm talking about. I love high expectations. It's the only way to teach. But tomorrow I'm going to be talking about the assessment, how I assessed my students, how I did those quick checks, how I held them accountable, how I knew whether or not they were ready to move up levels. So if you missed my first scope, it was all about how these work, how I have one set of centers to reach all of the levels of learners in one classroom. Okay, so if you missed that one, check it out on my blog. I will upload the second scope, which was all about organization, how to keep you sane as a teacher, how not to lose your mind when you're trying to do centers like this. So organization was today. Tomorrow will be all about how I assess my students. And same time tomorrow, no, it'll be a little bit earlier. I'll probably try to do this around noon tomorrow, Eastern Standard. Oh my gosh, y'all, my computer was falling back. That was almost a tragedy, a disaster. I would die. All right, so tomorrow, probably around noon, I will talk about the assessment piece and wrap this all up. And also, I have started a YouTube channel under my name, Hope King, where I'm uploading my scopes. So if you missed any previous ones and you want to go check those out, I have a classroom classroom tour. I have one about how to make time for you, which is probably my most important scope that I've done. I have these up there. I have one that I did with Kim Bearden with her classroom. So you can also check those out on YouTube as well. And again, tweet me questions at Hope King Teach. I'm trying to stay away from social media, but I'll be happy to answer your questions. That doesn't really calculate into my time. So I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll be back tomorrow to find out how I assess my students. I really appreciate you taking your time to listen to my big mouth, because y'all know I can go for a while. Loved your class tour. Thank you. I love my classroom too. It's one of my favorite places to be. And that's what's important about a classroom, is that it not only inspires your students, but it inspires you as well. So y'all are awesome. Thank you for all the hearts today. I've had a lot of fun chatting with you. I cannot wait to read your comments, because you make me a better teacher. I know y'all thank me, but thank you, because you all are the ones that make me a better teacher, because I'm giving you things that have worked for me, but y'all are challenging me and making me rethink my ideas and, oh, could it work this way? So really, I appreciate your conversations below, because I do go back and pay attention to those and learn from you all. That's teachers. There is no perfect teacher. I love that we can learn from one another. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys back tomorrow. I'll try to post it on my Instagram or on my Facebook, so that way you know exactly what time it's going to be. All right, you guys, happy Sunday. See you all tomorrow. Goodbye.